What happens when legends die? From statues to libraries to entire cities, it's assumed that the most remarkable people have the most incredible memorials. Why then does Bob Ross, one of the most legendary painters to ever live, have this tiny, hard-to-find gravestone?
I traveled to Woodlawn Cemetery in Orlando, Florida to find out for myself why his grave is so hidden and why so many people don't even know he died. There is so much more to Bob Ross than I ever knew, but just like every good story, we need to start at the beginning.
Robert Norman Ross was born on October 29, 1942, in Daytona, Florida. His father, Jack, was a carpenter, and as Bob grew up, he joined his dad's carpentry business. That is, until he accidentally cut off part of his own finger. This accident is one of the reasons he left for the Air Force at the age of 18, where he spent the next 20 years of his life. The Air Force is also where Bob first fell in love with painting at his first art class while stationed in Anchorage. This is what started it all. Shortly after, Bob took up a side job as a bartender where he sold his landscape paintings on old gold prospecting pans to tourists.
After his painting began making him more than his Air Force job, Bob retired and started attending various art workshops around the country until he met a man named Bill Alexander who taught him the wet-on-wet painting technique.
If you have to work too hard to create something you want to do, then you are not doing it right. You missed out somewhere.
With practice, this gave Bob the skill to create a painting from start to finish in just half an hour. Shortly after this, he met a woman named Annette Kowalski.
This is a name you're gonna want to remember because she's pretty significant to why Bob's grave is so hidden.
Annette and her husband Walt took interest in Bob and worked with him to air a pilot episode of a new TV show.
Hi, I'm Bob Ross, and for the next 13 weeks, I'll be your host as we experience the joy of painting.
Bob didn't really care about money. In fact, he originally began working on his television program for free.
The Kowalskis, on the other hand, most certainly did care, and they wanted to maximize the earning potential of Bob's new show. From Bob Ross paint lines to exclusive workshops, the happy little trees he was painting were continuing to be monetarily lucrative. For the next 20 years, Bob continued filming the joy of painting, motivated by the inspiration he was giving to thousands of new painters.
Everything came to a screeching halt, however, with the death of Jane, his wife, in 1992.
Outside of the emotional hardship of his wife's death, Bob also found business hardship from it as well. Because you see, Jane owned a large part of Bob Ross Incorporated, which was the company that formed between Bob and the Kowalskis. And Jane's shares were split evenly between them upon her death. This left Bob only owning 33% of his own company. To make things worse, not long after this, Bob himself was diagnosed with the cancer that would eventually kill him. He remained quiet about his illness, but 14 months before his death, he recorded his final episode of The Joy of Painting.
I think I'll sign this one. The old clock on the wall tells me it's about time to bring this show and this series to a close.
In the final months and weeks before his passing, the Kowalskis offered to build him a monument to his memorial. The condition? That Bob hand over the rights to his name. Bob was against this and refused till the day he died, but the Kowalskis weren't about to give up. Long story short, after Bob's death in 1993, Bob Ross Incorporated, the Kowalskis company, did get full control of the Bob Ross name and all his works, and no monument arose either. In fact, many people hadn't even realized he died, much less how to find his tiny burial site here in Orlando.
There are a bunch of legal things that I don't even begin to understand here, but I don't want that to be the point of this video. I don't think Bob would want that to be the point of this video. Bob Ross claimed to paint over 30,000 pieces of art in his lifetime. And even more incredible are the tens of thousands of people he taught to paint for the first time through his TV show and his workshops. This is Bob's legacy, and you can see the echoes of that legacy right here at his gravestone. Students from around the world travel here year after year to lay their art at the headstone of one of the greatest teachers to ever live. That's what makes this gravestone here at Woodlawn Cemetery in Orlando, Florida, really quite wonderful.